light up there. Welcome to a meeting of the Holiday Island Board of Commissioners. Today is Monday, April 24. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. The board is committed to disclosure of the business activities of the district to the public, as well as the public's ability to make comments at public meetings. On behalf of the Holiday Island Board of Commissioners, I call this meeting to order. I want to remind all in attendance that the Board of Commissioners acts as a governing body, whereas the district manager is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the district. The purpose of the board, as elected representatives of the property owners, is to provide direction to the district manager and assure the financial solvency of the district. It is not the responsibility of the commissioners to become involved in the daily operations of the district. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave, Mr. Dobrin, would you click that thermostat down one notch or two? You kind of went overboard. Thank you. Mr. Stamps, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Dyer,
Present.
Commissioner Childress,
Here.
Commissioner Surratt,
Present.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
and Commissioner Stamps. I'm here.
With all commissioners present, I declare a quorum. Commissioners, you have had an opportunity to review the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move that we agenda is printed.
I'll second.
Madam Chair, may
Yes,
I
sir.
make a comment?
Sure.
As we were preparing this agenda, as is usually the case, the agenda kind of evolves over the month until up to the meeting. This was not the last iteration. There was one minor change under approval of minutes. Okay. I stand corrected. I was making sure that we had the financial reports down there as an action item so it could be voted and accepted, but it is. I misread it.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right, thank you. Mr. Stamps will second. It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. The motion is approved. To approve the agenda is carried. Also, commissioners, you have the received by email the February 27 regular meeting and the March 20 special meeting minutes. Commissioners, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as emailed?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Dyer and seconded by Commissioner Childers to approve the minutes as mailed. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion to approve the minutes is carried. Ceremonial, does anyone have anything there? Announcements, anyone have any announcements that they would like to make? We will now hear general public comments with a 3-minute time limit. And the first comment, Ms. Sherman, do you want to make a general comment or do you want to wait till I see you want to comment on the...
No, I did it like I should have.
Well, AOB is, never mind,
I had to.
never mind. Be sure to turn your microphone on, state your name and address for the record.
Rebecca Sherman, Wild Turkey. My quick gets this. And also as a journalist, I do quite a few FOIs, and I would like to address that it would back in place an actual person who is the keeper of the records. Sort of relieve the fact of always, it seems that time issue, and someone should actually learn that.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Dumas, you want to talk about
Item number one. on the
item
agenda.
number one, Mr. Mills, item number one. I don't see anyone else who wished to make a general comment at this time, so we will move on to our reports. District Manager Presley, will you please update the board on the status of the sports complex office construction project?
Yes, ma'am. So we received the revised copy of the blueprints from Core Architects. We received that, I guess, about a week ago now. And the building inspector, Dave Dobrin, had asked for some amendments, and they made those amendments. And so I want to thank Dave and Mayor Keys for providing us with the approval on that. We now have the permit. The site prep began actually about a month ago, just marking some things and finding water and sewer connections so they can go ahead and do the rough end for the plumbing. And things are going to take off pretty quickly now. We should be able to get the plumbing roughed in and concrete formed up, and I'd say within 30 to 60 days we should have some concrete out there. So I've been in regular contact just about every day with the contractor. So ready to get going.
Good deal. Thank you. Also, the next item is the PRV replacement project. Is Dan here?
Yes, I
Okay.
saw him come in.
Okay. Oh, he's hiding back there behind Lynn.
Dan, could you give us
Well,
an update on that project?
I was going to ask first, Danny, would you give us give the attendees an update on the bid opening and how that went, and then
Sure.
we'll get with Dan and continue on.
Sure. We, as most of you may know, we worked with ESI Engineering out of Springdale, and they helped prepare this bid packet. It's very complex. It's 154 pages, and it was written by a team of engineers on these PRVs, and it's a lot more than even I realized it was going to be. So that we publicized that for bid. We publicized it statewide for about 30 days, and we received no bids last week at the bid opening. So I made a phone call to one of the companies, Big J Utilities, who has done almost all of the PRVs that we've done up to this point. And we've done 20, by the way. There are 18 remaining to be replaced. There's a total of 38 PRVs in Holiday Island. And so they have agreed to help us with that, but it's going to be a partnership between our people and our equipment to help prep the site. And then Dan, I'll let you explain the technicalities about how that process works, and what have you done in the last week or so to prepare us for that.
Remainder of the PRVs have been ordered. We're looking at a delivery time anywhere from 2 weeks to 10 weeks to get the remainder in. Meantime, we'll go ahead and start with what we have. Working, like Mr. Presley said, getting hold of Josh. We got to coordinate it because he also does other projects on the side. He runs Lost Bridge also. So we think we get 2 a week. To start, we might get more, it just kind of varies on what has to all be done. Biggest part is trying to shut the water off and, try to minimize the effect on the people that use the water. So it's going to be, it's going to be a long process. We probably won't get started until May 15th. We already got the remainder of the PRV spotted, which we'll not do. So it's just a matter of time coordinating and getting the job done.
My understanding, we do have, what, about 7 PRVs already on hand? Is that correct? Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
I have a question for Dan.
Sure.
Dan, it might be beneficial for the residents to give them a 10,000-foot view of where these PRVs are located. They're not fully exposed, are they?
No, they're in the road,
They're under the road. So,
just like everything else.
yeah,
They're in the road.
so,
They're in manholes. And
yeah, I wanted everybody to know that this isn't going to be easy, and that's why it's a project that requires some expertise and some patience. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions, commissioners, for Dan?
I just have one. Are they located in the same general area, or are they just spread out all over Holiday Island?
they're spread out.
Spread out.
It's an elevation thing, is what it is, so. Where the elevation changes, there might be 3 in one little area, there may be just 1.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I have one question.
Is there any reason, I guess for Danny or Dan, why we didn't do this in the first place rather than spend quite a long time, months and months, waiting for a bid to do that? And now it looks like Big J and your crews are going to do, well, it would have been nice if we had been started like a year or 2 ago. Is there any reason why we waited? Would it have been better to get another firm other than this Big J?
No, well, the reason, to my understanding, we were looking for a contractor. Josh, Big J is not a licensed contractor,
Okay,
so he does not have a permit
okay.
per se. Like I said, he's done all the ones that we did, so.
Okay. Where are they out of? Yeah. Big
Pea
J.
Ridge.
Where are they from?
Pea Ridge,
Okay, Pea Ridge. Okay. You've been okay with their service, what they've done so far?
oh yeah. He's done a lot more work than just PRVs here. He's helped us with water leaks and rebuilt lift stations, so he's,
Do you think, the last question, Danny, do you think this will be approximately the same cost as what we would have if we had a bid, or is it hard to say? For the 18 that are remaining?
I believe it's going to be a lower cost. Because we have 18 left, and he said he can do them for $2,000 or less. So that's, $36,000, and I was expecting well over $100,000 for a bid. And that's because we're bringing in some of our equipment and our manpower and prepping the site and doing a lot of the, kind of the peripheral work that's going to speed up the process.
One last thing, Dan, will the street have to be closed off while that manhole is exposed and so forth?
it just depends, really does. Sometimes we've done it with, just one lane open. Somewhere in a situation, we'll have to shut the road and have them do it somewhere else, but,
Okay.
we figure that out when we get there,
Yeah.
traffic control. But going back to your last question, yeah, we save a lot of money, even buying the PRVs ourselves, because the contractor's getting off the price.
Okay.
So, yeah, and we provide all the material, so.
Is the 10-week delivery just supply chain things that everybody's backed up and so forth?
Yeah, we're gonna try what we're doing with the distributor that has them. We're gonna do like a partial shipment, so we may get 2 or 3 in,
Good,
and then, you know,
good.
maybe get 1 in or 4 in. It's just, we'll work that out, but if we, you know, said we wanted 10, if we want, you know, what are we gonna, I'm not gonna wait 10 to 12 weeks for that, so.
It makes sense to you have them come in steadily, and then you can schedule, we've got 4 here, let's get 4 of them ready to go. And I think this is a real good plan, and thank you, Danny and Dan, for working this out, since we were unable to receive any bids.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question. I'm on the sheet. Is, or then wherever it is that the water is interrupted, how will the residents be notified?
we'll notify them through the email system, the same way you get other emails.
I don't get that system, so will it be on the website under his department?
It would be on the website, and it'll certainly be in the Holiday Happenings newsletter. You get the newsletter?
No.
Okay.
And we can always send a special announcement. If it pops up in the middle of the week that they're going to be here on Friday, we can send, Carrie can get us a special announcement out saying, we're going to be working here and here and here.
We have door hangers. We've done it in the past, just
Oh, okay.
Catamounts that the water's gonna be off, partially off.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Cool.
Also, it's important for situations where people have doctor appointments, expect their road to be closed.
We will do our best to notify
And that was
everyone,
the point.
and that's all we can do. We will do our best.
And as far as emergency vehicles or anything else, I mean, we can move out of the way. It's not like we're, you know, we've done that several times.
Mhm.
You know, previous fire department called and say, hey, we got a call. And it's like, okay, come on, we'll move everything, you know,
Yep,
to the side and hold traffic for you, so.
okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank
Can I ask a question? Are the PRVs in the middle of the road, or are they on the side, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, some are in the middle of the road, some are either left or right, but they're in the road.
Okay.
And there's paving moving the tank.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Alex, what,
Can I just ask a quick question? Or it's a summary, so my understanding is it's 18 PRVs, $2,000 each for the cost of labor. The PRVs themselves are whatever they are, depending on the size, is the cost, right?
Yep.
And you have all those funds budgeted for all the PRV materials.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
a ringing
I
yes.
hope so.
That's part of the funds from the sale of the permanent lease on the cell tower. We have almost $800,000 that is in a specific fund designated for this work. Okay?
Aren't you using those funds for the recreation building?
No, no, that's coming from balances that have built up in our general budget, our budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, once you replace those, are you gonna be able to get back in there again to replace them again, or is it another dig up? Is there any way to have those accessible to replace again, because they do go bad? You can dig again, pave?
Yes.
It depends. I mean, what breaks it? Usually it's the ones we got in the ground are 50 years old, and, you know, they're, new ones we got are all stainless steel, everything's, you know. I don't foresee us going back in there and replacing them for another 50 years. Yeah, 50 years at least.
Are you saying somebody else might have to worry about it?
Somebody else will have to worry about that. But I mean, it's a totally different, you know, it's all stainless steel. Before, we were fighting with rusty bolts and brass fittings, That's what breaks, but not the actual PRV. See, the problem we have now is they're like rusted in there, so we gotta beat them out of there and make some changes. I don't foresee us going back and changing the whole pilot valves, and that's all inside.
Sir.
One of the meetings that we had here like 2 years ago, there was mention of there might be more PRVs, but maybe up to 50. Has that been determined for the missing 12 or the possible unfound 12? Has that been considered, or that's still out there that has not been looked at?
I mean, we're gonna replace the PRVs that we already have in the system.
Okay.
I think the question is, do we need additional ones?
Or is there other ones that you haven't found yet?
No, we found them all.
You found them all?
All they're
Okay.
out in the
All right.
system. Having said that, we do need additional PRVs in certain areas, so.
Up to how many?
That we don't have a grasp on yet. We'll have to get with the engineer and try to see what additional valves we have. For instance, right down this lower area, we need 3 right here because there's 3 lines. So that's an additional 3 right there, so.
That's something that you're gonna try to do, combine as part of this project, or is this something that you're gonna look at like in the future?
Yeah, we want to get all the PRVs in right now and see what the system is
Okay.
doing. And then we'll go back and do what additional work needs to be done.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Good.
Dan.
And we appreciate all your hard work. Old business, we have none. The new business, we'll start with item number 1, consideration action to establish a policy to prohibit the early payoff of HICID assessments of benefits. Commissioners, the question is to establish a HICID policy prohibiting early payoff of assessment of benefits. Do I have a motion?
I'd make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the question. There are 3 points that I would like to make first, and then we will have commissioner comments, and then we will have public comments. First, quoting from a Q&A sent to property owners following the settlement of the class action lawsuit David Bischoff versus HICID and HICID's annual assessment billing. The answer to the question is, why can't I pay off my entire AOB at one time? The answer, as stated in this email or this letter that came out 10 years ago when all of this first came up, the state law of Arkansas permits a HICID to bill for and collect its annual levy based on a percentage of your lot's assessed benefits. The levy is limited to 10% or less of the assessed benefits. There is no law which allows HICID to bill nor collect any funds based on the AOB other than that. The second thing I have is quoting from the Arkansas Code, the section continued existence of suburban improvement districts. Suburban improvement districts shall not cease to exist upon the acquiring, construction, or completion of the improvement, but shall continue to exist for the purpose of preserving, maintaining, and operating the improvement, replacing equipment, paying salaries to employees, and performing any other functions or services authorized by the subchapter. So that's the continuing of these HICID. The last thing I would say is that following numerous discussions between the district manager and our legal counsel, the board has determined that it has the authority to establish an assessment of benefits policy to prohibit early payoffs. And now I will ask if any of the other commissioners have any comments.
The original basis of how this got started, just for a little history here. The Suburban Improvement District had the capability of issuing bonds in the amount of $7,280,000. That was the original concept. But if you go back to the very beginning, better than half of Holiday Island was not going to be central sewer system. It was going to be septic tanks and etc. Well, that's all fine and dandy, except half of that half would not perk, would not be able to sustain itself. And so therefore, when we came up with this, with the how to proportion everything out, we based it up on the bonding capacity that the district had. And it was just a number. It's just a number. The assessment of benefits is, if we were a city or a actual taxing authority, it would be an ad valorem assessment of benefits or appraised value. That's what it would be. It's just a number. You've got to have something to start with, and that's why it started out at that rate. The original ones were put on a Carroll County tax bill. Number one, we determined that it would have more authority if it came on a tax bill, and more than likely people would pay it better than if we just sent them out a statement. And it worked. Carroll County collected it, and we paid Carroll County a 10% fee for doing that, for processing it and doing it. However, McCulloch processed all the tax bills and did everything for the Carroll County at that point in time. We had a tax man, his name was Carl, and I'll think of his last name about 2 hours from now. But anyway, he ran the taxing authority for all of the McCulloch projects. And he was based out of LA. And he would come down every year and read the tax records and all that kind of stuff and present them to Irma Knowles, who was the tax collector at that point in time. And that's how it was all done. But the AOBs, I got off the subject there a little bit, but anyway, the AOBs is just a number. You got to have something to base it on, and that's what it was based on. And it's not something you can pay off. It's kind of like birthing a child. You don't get him through the 6th grade and say you're on your own. Something's got to be there. You got to take care of it, and it's got to take care of itself. And I hope I've explained that a little bit.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think all of us sitting here would agree that an AOB is the most bizarre method of funding a community possible. But it is what it is. It's what we've got.
Sorry.
And as the mayor said in a recent letter that he put on the City of Holiday Island website, he clarified the point that they made during the incorporation campaign, that the city, even if they taxed at the maximum amount possible under Arkansas state law, would never raise enough money to support this community. You know, most cities are supported by their sales tax, their property base, and all of that. As commissioners, we are delegated to take care of the assets of the community, as well as ensure its financial solvency. The Arkansas state law does not address anything other than annual installments. So I would say that we should, in our motion, let the office staff know that they are to accept only annual installments.
You know, the mere fact of thinking that in 22 years, or whatever the magic number is, that it's all going to be paid up is ludicrous at the start. Because at this point, what we are paying for every year is ongoing maintenance of the infrastructure and the assets of the district. And you and I, looking at the budgets and the financials and everything, know that honestly, we don't have enough money as it is. So if you allow people to pay off their remaining AOB, even if you put it in a dedicated account, drew interest on it, it would never generate the money that you need. So it would be, I think, not being good stewards of the district's asset for us to do anything other than to accept this proposal as it's written.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I agree with Ms. Childers, and she did a good job of explaining that. I was a member of the board in 2011-12 when the suit was brought to us and it was settled. And usually in a lawsuit, you would say there's winners and losers. I think that the AOB amount was reduced as a settlement of that lawsuit. But to have, I don't have $9,000 or $10,000 right now to pay off my AOB on my home. And why would I want to do that? But apparently some people want to do that. But it would, let's say you had 100 out of, there's like 1,600 water meters here in Holiday Island. Let's say you had 160 people with those water meters pay off their AOB. You've got to have enough money to run and do the budget every year, right? We just had Dan speak about PRVs, very expensive. We talk about water leaks, and we have all kinds of social media about water systems. And we've got to put in a UV system in the sewer plant. And all those things require money, and it requires taxes that you pay, but it's called an AOB. And like Mr. Stamp said, it's just a number. And we've got to have the money to operate, and that's what it is, of your property. And as Suzanne mentioned, if it was a city like Fayetteville, they have ad valorem taxes, and you pay according to the value of your property. And they have sales taxes, and they have all other kinds of taxes. We don't. And the city will not have the ability to do that if it was just a city. So I think having been a member of that board and going through that trauma, it was very troubling, and I don't think it benefited much. I guess the people who brought the lawsuit would say that it did, and it was a good thing. But ultimately, it might be settled in a court. But right now, as our chair said, she gave the facts and why I would vote to establish this policy. Thank you.
We will now turn to, I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead, Commissioner Dyer.
I wanted to make a quick comment. I know that this issue is a talking point for some people in the community, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong with people talking and expressing their views, and I sure wouldn't want to stifle that in any way. But I would like to say that some of these people have insinuated that the existence of HISED is a power move, you know, that this board in particular are a bunch of power-hungry people, and to keep HISED alive at any cost is our mission. And I think I can speak for everyone on this board that we're anything but that. Anything but that. You know, I would look at a community with one government. But unfortunately, here in Holiday Island, because of the lack of taxing ability, sales tax and property tax, the amount of infrastructure we have, the amount of other amenities and things we have, it's probably never going to happen.
Maumelle did it.
Excuse me, sir.
Point of order.
You know, HISED will go away at some point. it will go away at some point because we'll exhaust our ability to collect the annual AOB. Guess what? The water continues to be an expense, the sewer continues to be an expense, the roads continue to be an expense, the fire department continues to be an expense, and so forth. It's a cycle that will go on forever as long as Holiday Island exists. And at that point, you know, Arkansas has the legislated abilities for communities like us to establish districts other than the suburban improvement district. Fire districts, sewer districts, water districts, road districts. So folks, if HICID were to go away, which is the central, I guess, management of this community, if it were to go away, it's going to be replaced by at least 5 other districts. So instead of writing one check a month and enjoying the efficiencies of one organization, you're going to have 5 different organizations that you're going to have to be responsible to just maintain, forget about the amenities, to just maintain the infrastructure. And it's going to be a hurdle for whoever's in charge at that point to cross, I think, and I don't know what the answer is going to be, but today we have HICID in place, and we are doing our very best to manage the assets of HICID, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bob. Does excuse me, does anyone wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the question? Again, you will have a 3-minute time limit. And Ms. Sherman, you're first up.
Rebecca Sherman, Wild Turkey. I asked this question back in February because I didn't know what anyone was talking about. So I still have this question. On the tax assessments that were sent, on the back side, it had this whole, well, not on the, there was a flyer that had pay it off amount. And I'm going to ask now, did anybody pay that off yet? We're going to take a vote. Just asking questions, it's not an opinion here. But when you're getting ready to take a vote that you possibly are not going to pay off, based on that flyer that came off out with the assessment, actually paid off based on that?
I can answer that because I and staff take the payments here. We have never had someone come to the office and offer to or attempt to pay off their
Well,
AOB.
that's good to know based on the fact that you might vote one way or another here. Then I have a question. All of this taxes on the tax assessor, who my understanding the last one was in 2011, this lawsuit time period you're referring to, any moment, based on your question on the floor, would it interfere with having reassessment done? My mind, it doesn't, but I'm asking you.
Based on my discussions with our legal counsel, if someone did pay off their AOB, by the statute, that would not trigger a reassessment or another study of AOBs.
so really clueless here. How does that, is it the community bringing the question to the board, whatever board, to what triggers having a tax assessor come back into this area and do a tax reassessment?
Clarify, it's not a tax.
Yeah, it's not a tax. There is a distinction between an assessment of benefit and a tax. Just wanted to make that point of clarification. And what would trigger it is a substantial addition of amenities, new amenities.
All right, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Mr. Dumas, you have some questions or a comment, please?
Lynn Dumas, 32 Quail Run Drive. My comments today are based on not having yet seen the policy because it's not available on the website for me to see before the meeting. But I did support prohibiting the prepayment of AOB balance so that HISA does not have a diminished ability to support the ongoing maintenance and upkeep of the district. I did some looking at ACA 1492-228. It's in the section of Suburban Improvement District statutes. Its title is Levy of Tax. In Section A, Paragraph 1, it says the Board of Commissioners of the Suburban Improvement District shall enter upon its record an order that shall be assessed. So it's talking about this tax, this assessment of benefits. And it's talking about the need for an order. And it's my recollection from your November or maybe December meeting that you just simply had a table of assessed benefits and made a motion to approve that table. I think it'd be prudent to have an order so it spells out exactly what you're doing. It also says in paragraph 2, the tax is to be paid by the realty property in the district in proportion to the amount of the assessment of benefits thereon, and is to be paid on an annual installments. So I think the code 1492-28 covers you. And it says it has to be paid annually. So if your order included those kinds of languages, a policy may not be necessary. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Mills?
Ken Mills, 20 Rocky Top Circle. In judging the dialogue within board, I don't think I have to say anything. Just saying that I do not believe that paying off assessment of benefits is allowed within statutes and the intent of the incorporation of the district. I don't think, I just say amen.
Mr. Dobrin?
Dave Dobrin, 31 Oak Point Drive. And one comment I would like to make is that I think in the best interest of Holiday Island and residents,
Thank you. Ms. Graves?
Now, I'm not sure I need to talk to you because it sounds like you've kind of made up your minds, but just wanted to reinforce that I sent you the document that I presented October of 21 when this was brought up before. And I'm sure you all had a chance to look at it. And in that document, I made several points. One, that I thought that allowing early payoff of the AOB actually disadvantaged everybody who didn't pay off the AOB because they would be paying more over the years they had their house or lot than those that had taken advantage of the early payoff. So I don't think it's fair. It's not a fair way to handle business. It also I don't think you have enough money. I mean, it reduces the amount of money you have.
Quiet,
to
please.
Keep the,
Can we keep the conversation down, please?
it reduces your ability to have enough in the AOB to continue operation for the number of years we need to continue operation. When we formed the city, the main goal was to get tax money that we're already paying out here in county taxes and state taxes and fees, and use that money, the turnback funds, to help supplement ISID's operational budget, which we've done. I know I've seen on social media somebody says, well, where did that money go? Well, $600,000 in grant and our turnback money, redoing Hawk and State Line.
Yeah.
And
6
more
miles
money
of
will
road.
be coming in the future, which I believe we're going to repay all. So that money provided real benefit to Holiday Island. And the goal was to ensure that we could, on the AOB, last as long as possible. And for those that don't understand, the AOB charge 6% interest every year, HICID does, against that last assessment value. And if you need more budget that year, you may have to spend more than that. We can only charge an assessment to property owners of that 6% amount. But because of budget needs and capital improvement costs and what have you, you may need to spend more than that a year. And if you create an assessment higher than that 6%, anyway, you will eventually reduce that AOB a little bit. You'll eat out the remaining balance. So, and one other point I wanted to make was about the AOB being the first lien on your house. Or you can foreclose on property for lack of payment. It's not a lien. It's not. Your lien doesn't come due and payable until you haven't paid it. So it's no different than your county taxes. They have a lien on your house too. So it's just the way that the state government implements taxation. I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. Commissioners, are you ready for the question? The question is to establish a HICID policy to prohibit early payoff of assessments of benefits. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion to establish a policy to prohibit early payoff of assessment of benefits is carried. The next item on our agenda on new business is the financial to consider action to receive and accept the January, February, and March 2023 end-of-month reports. The question is to receive and accept the financial reports for January, February, and March of 2023. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to consider and receive the reports.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Childers and seconded by Commissioner Brown to consider the question. District Manager Presley, will you please review the most recent financials?
Yes, ma'am. Are you able to pull them up on the screen? I believe that Ms. Jensen has that so that you can see it on the screen. Of course, I did make copies for you also, but. Is there, yeah, can you, where that little plus sign is right there, does that, well, I don't know if that does it or not. Somewhere up there, you'll be able to, oh, it's gonna be right here. Right at the top, there's a little plus
Talk
and
about
minus.
power, man. Now he's got his pointer.
Yeah, and you can exit out right there, yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Good,
That'll
good.
help.
I got
So this is our year-to-date expenditures. You know, it's difficult. What we're looking at here is, you know, obviously we're year-to-date. This does not include April because, you know, we won't get the April numbers till sometime in May, but you're looking at January, February, and March. This is kind of an off time of year anyway. You know, colder weather, the marina is not doing a lot of business. There's not a lot of golf going on. As the community sort of wakes up into warmer weather, April, May, June, July, you really start to see those revenues come in. And then the AOB revenue, well, I'm getting ahead of myself talking about revenues, but AOBs are not due until October. So my point is you've got to get further into the year to really see how you're trending. But these are the early numbers for expenditures. The roads department over here, this number, it may be a little small for you to see this number here for the roads department, but that's $294,000 and change. Those expenditures are pretty high to be this early in the year, but we have purchased 2 new trucks. We were at the point where we had to have new trucks for the roads department to be able to take care of our roads. When we had these last winter storms, we were just not able to plow the roads. I mean, we had 2 trucks that were 80s models, like 40-year-old trucks, and they were just at the end of their life, and we finally got to the point we had to buy a couple of trucks. And then we also purchased the equipment like spreaders and a snow plow to go on those trucks. And so that's kind of what's driving that number there.
But when you look at the total column, I mean, these figures reflect 25% of the year.
Correct, and we're
the
26.
total is at 26, so,
We're on track,
yeah.
yeah. It's just, as I said, it's easier to see how you're doing later in the year, but as Commissioner Childers pointed out, we're on track. Let's go to the next page. This is the revenue. Okay. No. Oh, can you click, let's try this. Right there, that's a PDF. Is that the tab that you're on? Yes. That is the tab that you're on? Okay. It's not showing the PDF as it's normally shown. Can you scroll down to the next one?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. There we go. Now, this is our revenue for the first 3 months. When I say non-AOB, it means just that. This is revenue coming from all of these other sources that you see here: roads, water, wastewater, and so forth. the 18-hole operations, it looks like we're at almost 120,000 for golf revenue 3 months into the year, which is pretty good. And the restaurant's already at a little over 32,000. So here's the total in the top right there, 463,000 total revenue. Pretty good. If you look at the next page, you'll see there are percentages.
Danny?
Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
ask a question?
Sure.
On the marina,
Mike?
thank you. On the marina, I would have expected that a lot of the slip fees would have come in by March.
They are actually billed in March.
They're billed in March.
They're billed in
That's why
March.
they're not here.
Yes, so April, May, we'll start seeing
Okay.
a lot of those.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. This is a percentage of what was projected. A percentage of projected revenue. So the general fund here is already at 50%. Although this chart can be somewhat misleading because the general fund may be, in terms of a dollar amount, much less than water and wastewater. Water and wastewater might have $1.3 million of revenue projected for the year, and roads has much less, so the percentages can be a little bit misleading. For example, campground projected revenue is probably going to be around 15,000. So, okay, let's take a look at the next one. I like to take a look at this chart each month because it shows us how we're doing with our budgeted versus actuals. We do revenue projections and we do projections on expenditures when we prepare the budget each year. And as Ms. Childers pointed out, we, at the end of March, were 25% of the year. Our revenue's at 24.23, and considering, that's a really good number considering we're in the off-season right now. Our revenues generally don't kick in until we get into the warmer weather and things start cranking up here at Holiday Island. And then expenditures, we're at 26.5. And the biggest bulk of this number here that you're seeing for expenditures are the purchase of those 2 trucks and the snow plows to go with them to help maintain our roads during those winter storms, because those are the only big purchases that we've made so far. Now this will...
Do you have any idea, have we already cut a check for the new fire truck or not?
We made a down payment of $30,000.
Okay, so that isn't shown in this yet.
It probably does, because I think we cut that check in March. So that's probably showing here, with $30,000 down payment, and the total cost of the truck is $119,000. And I think we all know how important that new fire apparatus is for our ISO rating. So we understand we've got to heavily invest in that, and we're going to be looking at 2 other trucks in the next 2 weeks, one in Georgia and one down in South Arkansas in Pine Bluff. Okay, next slide. You may remember this slide from last year. This line here is kind of faint. It's a gray line. I'll probably change that color next time. But you know, when we bill this revenue in February, you can see right here is when the revenue bills went out. And then you can see the AOB revenue start sharply increase because payments started coming in. And at the end of March, we collected $413,000. So we try to track this, and you see these lines sort of converge as we go through the year. Next slide, please. Now this number up here, it's flat line across the top, is our projection. We project $2.46 million in revenue from AOBs for 2023. Can you go up just a little bit? There we go. See this gold colored line is showing what we've collected. And you see, as I mentioned, the bills went out in February, and you see this start to climb. So if all goes as planned, you'll see this line all the way up here to meet what we have projected for AOB's income. So we track this very closely every 30 days. We get an update from the accountant and just see how we're doing. Next page. Our reserves. When you come down, there we go. We're at 36.4%, which is better than where we were. We were at 35.1, I believe, on the last presentation that I did for you. Interest rates have gone way up. When I first started tracking these revenues, our CDs, and that's where our reserves are, they're held in investments and they're in CDs. And I will detail that for you here in a later slide. But they were paying about 0.4%, maybe 0.5% 18 months ago. And the last one that we got, we had a CD that matured, and we reinvested that at 4.85% for 12 months. So we're at almost 5% return on CDs. And we're really trying to capitalize on the market right now by keeping short term on our CDs so that we can, and we have them staggered so that we have a CD that matures about every 3 to 4 months, so we can cash that in, reinvest, and keep continuing to get a higher rate. So the market's really helping us right now on our investments, and hopefully we'll see this number continue to grow through the year. Now I think the Fed is going to be meeting again soon. They're probably going to increase the rate by about 25 basis points. So you're going to see it top out around 5%. And then I was at a conference last week with the Arkansas City Managers Association, and we were discussing all of this and how different cities around the state are doing their investments. And we think that's probably going to be about the terminal rate, is about 5%, and then we'll probably see inflation start to slow to the point where the Fed will stop increasing, and we'll see a gradual tapering off of interest rates over the next 18 months. But right now, we're trying to lock in everything we can at these higher rates.
And I would say, Danny, thank you for the bid process you're using. We are required to put them out to the bid, and we go to local banks, and one bank got a little sleepy and lost business, and now they've become real competitive again. So, you know, we are getting good, aggressive bids from the 2 or 3 banks that we solicit.
Sure, I have a question, Danny, on reserves.
Sure.
And a few months ago, I think it was, we were down to like 30.4%. And our policies are that we keep it at 35, right? 35%.
Mm-hmm.
What causes that to go down? And then you said we have CDs, which I see up there. I like that increase, in interest rate. But why does it go down? Where did that money go? What was it used for that caused it to go, let's even say from 36.4 down to 30?
Went the other way.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
It went the other way.
The reason we needed to increase our reserves is because our budget went up.
Our balances
It's
are hard.
it's a percentage of our budget, and the budget from last year to this year increased, which is why we had to move some money.
And it's based on this number right here, 4.275 million. This is our total M&O, which is maintenance and operations. That's the total M&O budget. So the reserves are, this number reflects a percentage of this number.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
And as Commissioner Childers explained, our budget increased. So it shifted the amount that we needed to have in reserve.
Okay. The other question I have is, let's say something terrible happened, and I won't even mention it, but let's say we lost a $1 million building or marina or something tomorrow. Don't even want to say it. That's the money that we would go to for emergency to replace something. Is that right?
If the board so desired, we could do that. We could issue debt, or however the board wanted to handle it. I mean, you would have some options. And of course, we are insured on all of our major assets. And we just, by the way, we just renewed the coverage and the dollar value on all of our assets just about 4 months ago. So I think we're in a lot better shape now in terms of the amount of coverage that we have on our insurance. And we switched to the Arkansas Municipal League.
Well, let's look forward to the UV system that has to be done within a certain number of years for the water sewer plant. And let's say it's $750, which I think it is $750,000. Rather than taking a loan, is it possible to go to reserves to pay that rather than if we didn't have it in the actual budget for that year? How could we pay for it without borrowing money is what I'm asking.
Well, it's a board decision. You know, my opinion is, and you know, I can only provide my recommendation to the board. My recommendation would be not to use reserves for that if we had the ability for a low interest loan. But ultimately it would come down to a vote of this board. If you would rather take away from reserves or use a low interest loan through the state of Arkansas.
Are we going to be working on that project in the next several months, getting ready for that?
Yes, well, you may remember Jeff Denhart brought us blueprints of the design. So the design work is pretty well done, and he is currently working on those grants and low interest loan opportunities. Now, as I mentioned, we're not an LMI community. That's low to moderate income. Holiday Island, although we're not a wealthy community, we do not qualify for low to moderate income, LMI. And last week, while I was at the conference that I mentioned, we had an hour-and-a-half presentation by a lady who works for the state of Arkansas and the Arkansas Municipal League. She's an attorney, and her expertise is in grants. And she gave us, I had overload, the amount of information she gave us about grants that are available in Arkansas and kind of how those grant processes are working and what's going on with the legislature, what money's available and so forth. And my point is this: the number one factor in receiving a grant is whether or not you are a low to moderate income community. And because we don't qualify, we so to speak, go to the end of the line for those grants. Now, low interest loans are a different story. Low interest loans are relatively easy to get, but a grant is very difficult to get if you're not LMI. So,
I guess what I'm asking for is if we get to start on bids for this sooner than later, given our record of no bids and so forth.
Right.
They said we have 5 years to do this. I think 1 year has gone by already, and you know, I would like to get started on it right away.
yes, sir. Any other questions on this slide? Okay, let's go to the next one, Sharon. Money market balance. This is a history of the money market balance. You can see the blue here going back to 2019 through 2023, and there we are. The money market account is, if you were speaking in municipal terms, like a regular city government, this is the general fund. This is the the mothership account, as I call it, where all revenue goes into this account, all payables are paid out of this account. Now, there are things in this account that are earmarked. Reserves are earmarked. Things like the fire department grants are earmarked. The money that we set aside for major water projects, and I think we even called it major projects account. It's approximately $800,000 for the water wells. Well 4 will be next, and then well 5. That money is also in this account. So we just kind of track this through the year, month to month. You can see the uptick here historically in October. That's when AOBs are due. A lot of people wait to the last minute. That's normal. But we'll be following this, and obviously I will update this, month to month as to how we're doing in our general fund. Thanks. When you come down so we can see the heading. There we go. That's our monthly cash flow. This, no pun intended, but it really does kind of ebb and flow month to month based on a lot of things. If we make a big purchase like those vehicles, you can see here, we purchased those, wrote those checks in January. So when you do the financials, we're down in February. Those trucks and the associated equipment were probably in the $70,000 to $80,000 range. Once you put a tank on it and a spreader and a snowplow to outfit the truck to do the work. And so we ended our cash flow at minus $105,000 at the end of March. So can you go up just slightly again? What is the green again? Okay, total cash, all accounts. And there we are, 4.5 million. Okay. And I am happy to answer any questions. As I said, we'll continue. As the board knows, we do this every 30 days. Keep a close eye on our financials, where we're at, and you're not watching it, it'll sneak up on you. So,
I have one question on, so we have enough cash on hand, enough money to pay for well 4 and 5 when we get a bid on the contract, and the PRVs that Dan brought up earlier. All that money is here in the money market account, right?
yes, sir. It's right at $800,000 earmarked for those major water projects. And that's a commitment that this board made, seems like it was a year ago.
And the chair mentioned earlier the money from the cell tower sale and the Purple Wave, which was great. That's going to be used for what?
That's what's in that account.
That's
Yes,
the
sir.
account we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Dedicated for those purposes.
Yes, sir.
We won't need any low-interest rental loans or grants for any of that if we've got cash on hand.
Correct. Those can be cash funded. And the PRVs, I'm very pleased that in talking to the owner of their Big J Utilities, that we could do those PRVs at roughly $36,000, which is much less than what we were expecting through a bid process.
On the wells 4 and 5, do we expect, I hope we don't have disappointing news of no bid on that. Does Jeff say that we could get a bidder on that? I mean, companies that will...
We expect to get a bid on that, yes, sir. That is a different sort of job than doing 18 different PRVs in this type of terrain and underneath the roads. So we fully expect to get a bid on that.
What is the holdup on that? Why aren't we, doing that like by June 1st or something?
Well, I expect to have, actually expected to have well 4 bid packet last week. But I just realized that Jeff is out of town. He's actually in Florida I should get it back just, literally just any day now.
Plus, we also have to realize that Dan has only so many hours of the day to supervise what's going on. And it might be good to complete the PRV before we jump into the, well, I remember how he babysat well number 1 last year when it went down, so.
The final holdup on well number 4 was the fact that we do not have a generator on well number 4, and that's critical. And so he was getting some specs from Caterpillar for a generator there, a really good generator that could run for days on end, to ensure our water supply. And it's hooked up to an automatic transfer switch so that if the power goes out, the generator kicks on, and residents would not have to worry about going through a period of time with no water. So that was the last step on that.
Number 4 is the one that's taking the major rebuilding, is that correct?
That's 5.
Or that's 5?
Well
okay.
number 5.
4 is a relatively easy job. I mean,
Compared to 5.
Compared to 5, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
4 is the one at the golf course,
It's right there by Fort Apache where they maintain the golf carts and all that.
and 5's at the bottom of the hill?
Yes.
What's the rough numbers on well 4 and well 5?
That's a good question. Well 4, probably what we expect is about $350,000. On well 5, probably around $500,000.
Okay, I thought I just heard that the PRVs are part of the 800,000.
Yes.
Okay, so now you have 800,000 for the 2 wells.
I understand the math. We would be over by a little bit, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Yes, but if we're over by 50 or 75,000, I mean, we do have several $1 million in our general fund that we can augment that difference there.
Does anyone wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the question of accepting the financials? I didn't have anyone on the sheet, so we will move on. Commissioners, are you ready for the question? The question is to receive and accept the financial reports for January, February, and March 2023. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the financial statements are accepted. Our last order of business is to hold an executive session to review the performance of the district manager. At this time, we ask the public to leave the boardroom so we can conduct an executive session. We will recall you when we return to the regular order of business. We will also take a break before, as the room clears, we will take a brief break and then come back to meet. Sherry?
Madam Chair, could I suggest, in the past, we've had the executive session in the office, the district manager's office, so that the public didn't have to leave and come back or go to their cars. Is that a possibility?
That's,
I'm fine with me.
The only one I've attended, we did in here. But if you all wish to stay, we will adjourn to the district manager's office.
Sure.
And